From being one of Ryan Reynolds' best movies to having its future being questioned, Free Guy 2 has the actor feeling some type of way. There are a bunch of reasons that get the movie into trouble. For instance, it's got so many unique elements, a ton of things that set it apart from the crowd, but none are as unique as the story itself. Free Guy, directed by Shawn Levy, tells the story of Guy, a bank teller who discovers that he's a non-playing character in the massive online game Free City. When Guy teams up with Jodie Comer's character, Millie, the creator of the game Life Itself, they embark on a mission. In this mission, they mean to prove that Free City's CEO stole Millie's original source code to create the game. With the threat of being rebooted or replaced by Free City 2, Guy and Millie must gather evidence to support their claim before it's too late. Even though Free Guy was a box office success, Ryan Reynolds has expressed caution about the potential for a sequel. He thinks that not everything needs a follow-up and that sometimes it's best to let a successful movie stand on its own. Even though he says that the possibility for Free Guy still stands, it's just that instead of blindly jumping into a sequel, Reynolds believes that the first film should be allowed to speak for itself, which I think is a very smart piece of advice. But having said all of that, is Reynolds really in the right to oppose Free Guy 2? One of the primary concerns with making a sequel to a hit movie is that there's often pressure to exceed the success of the original. And to be completely fair, this comparison is often the reason why many sequels fail, even if they're not as bad as portrayed. This results in rushed, underdeveloped scripts, but more importantly, failure to capture the magic of the first part is very difficult. Why? Because the audiences that are coming in to watch your film want something new while feeling the nostalgia for the old. Being able to tackle such a unique problem is extremely hard, and no wonder it only goes the filmmaker's way very rarely. Again, all of these steps are taken to keep the old intact while delivering something completely new. In the case of Free Guy, the movie was well received by both critics and audiences, largely due to its fresh, original concept. Not just the story itself, but the effort put in by the great cast was also worth the praise. But the story wrapped up nicely with a satisfying conclusion. This is a problem if you're looking to make a sequel, because it leaves little room for a direct continuation, not at least without undermining the events of the first movie. While, of course, a second part could be made as easy as ABC, it just might not stand out as much. So, in a case where that part can be overlooked, I've got some ideas for a part 2. For example, why not just start with a completely new story? I mean, what's stopping the writers from doing so? After all, the movie's literally based on a guy in a video game, so why not redo it with another guy or a new story altogether? This way, not only the pressure of living up to the previous film will hopefully be lessened, but also allows for a story without having to stay respectful to the previous one. Again, it's also possible to continue the story with new characters or plot threads, but this pushes for the risk of diluting the impact of the original by forcing a sequel that doesn't measure up in quality or creativity. It's really like the writers have to pick their poison. Either way, they'll have to play really smart to be able to have the success they need from a part 2. Having said all of that, there is another very real and concerning issue with sequels, and it's called the audience fatigue. With so many movies and TV shows for each genre in the market, viewers may get overwhelmed with it together. Take the example of the superhero genre. Marvel played the boss for over a decade, till the Infinity Saga ended. But ever since that happened, people have slowly started to lose interest in the genre altogether. There are several reasons for that, one being the repetition or recycling of older narratives. Because really, how much new content can you make from problems that are the same? And two, that there's so much content to consume now. Especially in the superhero shared universe genre, viewers decide to drop the idea by not watching most of it instead. instead. So yes, in a world with problems such as those, avoiding a sequel and allowing Free Guy to stand on its own could actually be good for it. At the end of the day, filmmakers can preserve the impact of the original and prevent audience burnout. All of these factors must be carefully considered when deciding whether or not to make a sequel. Just because The Avengers worked out as a sequel says absolutely zero about how and if Free Guy 2 would work too. This calls for a logical approach, where each project is seen with a critical eye. Not just that, but a willingness to take risks and innovate rather than simply relying on past success also makes a huge difference. Not to forget the risks involved in continuing the old story. While a sequel to Free Guy could explore new themes, there are concerns about the risks involved in making a follow-up to such a successful movie. While the concept of free life proved successful in the first film, it might not work in the next part. I say that because, yes, it made sense in the first part, but keeping it the main story for the new film may seem too simple. But again, without taking risks, no one is really going to find out what the masses would like to see. Given that both the director and main actor are hesitant for a part 2, explains why there's a delay in the first place. Because usually, what happens with successful movies is that their sequels get announced pretty quickly to keep the viewers excited. Oh, but before you get all excited, let me burst your bubble. Yes, the first part received lots of praise, but it's not without the fact that it was released at the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. In those desperate times, there wasn't much content released, and I think that Free Guy may have taken advantage of that. When there isn't something better to compete with, obviously viewers will appreciate the mediocre stuff too. And what if that's exactly what happened with this movie? In that case, there's a high chance that the second part might not even survive a week in the cinema. So here's my piece of advice. Free Guy's lack of cynicism and bleakness is crucial to its appeal. A potential sequel must avoid the common pitfall of becoming darker and more dramatic. I say that because that's one of the biggest budget traps in Hollywood. In order to one-up the original film, the makers put way too much into the next film and resulting in failing so badly. So instead of doing that, it's better to have a completely new story, or better yet, leave the film as is. In the case where they do decide to go with the second part, striking a balance between a new story and not raising the bars too high will be key. If it was up to me, I'd listen to my good man Reynolds. And there you have it, what Ryan Reynolds feels about part 2 of Free Guy and why he's right.